in regards to what the next step is. You don't ask the mover, you don't ask the committee that's been assigned the work, you ask council. Council as a whole. So if it ever comes up that somebody's worried about what they should do because Robert said so, or because I said so, then it just don't do that and come back to council, even if you lose time. And then we'll learn over time. We're gonna lose time to this, but the thing is, I'm concerned that when we have discussions about we need to get aligned, it sounds like just do what I tell you, or just do what we tell you. And that isn't teamwork either. So we should be able to have a back and forth in regards to whether or not something is realistic. Even if council wants to do something, if faced with evidence that maybe we shouldn't, or maybe it's not worth it, I don't want my staff to be scared about bringing that up because it's a pet project, even if it's mine or anybody else's. I'm not always sure that staff are of the mind that that's something that they can do. And I'm saying that that's a failure of both council and the staff to not do it. So I think it's very important for the executive director to bring up when something seems unwise, to bring that up in a report. And that we try very, very hard to not walk resolutions in or create ad hoc resolutions, because that's where lack of clarity comes. And then we're going to have to come back and do it again. And that's what happened in regards to the hiring stuff, because I don't think it was ever intended to kind of cut off someone who was just about to get a hiring slip, right? But that happened because of a strict interpretation of what was written down. And that's on us, because the language we passed was either not contemplated or the reasons why we passed it were not clear. Yeah. And so sometimes we have to take the time to do that. And honestly, I think we should have a recommended motion for everything, and everything outside that, aside from administrative matters, like recesses or whatever, should probably be like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Once again, that slows things down, but it makes it more clear, and then hopefully staff will be a bit more emboldened to put forward information that may go against what we hope is true. I'd rather hear the awful truth rather than a rosy lie at that point.
Just so you're clear, John, when I say align, there's an understanding from our administration that we're elected to govern, yep, and they're hired to manage. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those cross each other. Mm-hmm. Sometimes management thinks that they have the right to do what the government has to do. And that isn't the case, and vice versa. Sometimes government members think they have the right to tell an administration person what to do. No, when I mean align, let's get clear on our understanding that we have a responsibility of government. We're here to govern. Mm-hmm. And administration has a responsibility to manage, and they're here to manage. And as sure as I'm sitting here, and I know there's some committees think they're the opposition. Committees are an arm of government. They're not an opposition of government. They're an arm of government. And that's the ability to do things and work together and to come up with agreement, what this governance structure is all about. And John, I'm very clear on we have a governance responsibility. We've been elected to do that. And we have a group of administration that have been hired to manage, implement the decisions of the government. That's how I see it, and that's what I mean by getting aligned. And I by no means mean it to be bark in order and get in line. No, that's not it. Let's get in and have an understanding of what we got to do to make things better for our citizens, because we're spending too much energy on things that are not making better for our citizens. We're too busy arguing with what's better for ourselves. We have too big a job, where our community is too far behind the 8 ball on economic development. As long as we have unemployed who hit, as long as we have people out of housing, as long as we have homeless people, we got a lot of work in front of us. And that's what I want our focus to be. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to that. I just want to make sure that when we do make decisions that they're made on the best information available. And because of the baggage that has occurred on purpose or not on purpose, and I don't care about that. I care about how we're going to do better moving forward. I want the staff to be able to put in a report. We don't think you should do this. because of these reasons. And we still get to decide, but we need to do it in the daylight. And sometimes it feels like we're avoiding some of the kind of red team or some of the devil's advocate kind of arguments that need to be made by someone. And that's making our decisions weaker because we're just moving ahead with our rosy view of how things will go. Whereas we need that injection of reality from time to time, and we need to make space for it. And it shouldn't always be staff, it should be council members as well. But we're just learning that as we go, right? It's our job here to have those discussions that are tough so that those discussions don't affect people outside of this room. And specifically staff either. Like, we're the ones who are supposed to have those debates. And I don't think we're getting all of the information because of how it might be viewed at this table as bad news or someone working against an intention. I don't care about the intention. I care about what we're doing and how well it's going. I don't know what the solutions are for a myriad of things, but we need to put our faith in a process. And part of that is arguing over options, and we don't get the options. Our briefing notes are like, do what we want, do something diluted, or do nothing. And that's not, that's lazy. There, on any issue, there's a myriad and a spectrum of things that we could be doing that we just don't talk about. And part of it's because it takes time, but the other part of it is, I think some of those things are edited out because it's how it might impact the discussion, even though it should impact the discussion. So I'm not trying to say we shouldn't do what we've resolved to do. I'm saying we need to do better as a council and as an administration to get to that decision with enough detail and information to back it up when scrutinized. And we don't always do that. So,
Robert. Trevor?
I think that's why I brought up today in regards to the motion, in regards to the evaluation and the executive director coming back. Because it shouldn't be Charlie coming to us saying, you know, this should be done, because the thing that was missed out of that was the HR, because you're right, we should listen to them, and we should listen to the HR manager as well. If the HR manager is saying that I'm going to freeze on everything, then the HR manager is there for that reason. And so you're right, we should be reliant, they should be coming. My expectation is somebody that's being hired and is in the executive director or any director position has the know-how to know that if you're going to be working for Hawaii Treaty, you understand that you need to talk and have the executive director bring it back to us. It's not my responsibility to handhold them, but I'll have a good relationship to make sure that leading up to any council meeting, that you do that background work. And then you do that. But, you know, I think on most part, that's the reason why it's so important is for this evaluation to happen, is the way I see it is, we're here on behalf of the citizens. And so I don't think we see things rosy colored. In fact, when you look at the experience around this table, this leadership table, that's what I see. I don't see us looking at rosy colored ways of what we think we should be doing, and we just pass things like nothing. In fact, I think we have the hardest conversations here out of everybody. The staff don't have conversations like we do at this table. We push issues here more than the staff does. I guarantee it. Because most of the time I see the staff wanting to play a part together, and we push each other at this table. That's one thing I seen in the last term. Whether finance, Hahuthli, we had no issues pushing issues at this table. So any decision that we've made over the last 4 years, I stand behind fully because of that.
Charlie?
So I think it's all great discussion. It almost leads us into our next agenda item.
Oh, it's with you. Okay. Thank you. I think correct. I think we've had enough discussion on there.
Yes, just a comment on it though. I think a lot of the discussion could be had at a senior management and council, you know, get together like we talked about, like the working relationship thing. That's a good venue for this, I think. Part of the discussion anyway. And just part of the next actually agenda item in this one is, I feel personally that when we're just relying on our council meetings, like twice a month, that we actually only see each other and we have this debate. I would love for us to even just council to get together another time just to have a conversation where we can debate back and forth and roll up our sleeves, where it's, you know, just leading up to either motions or agenda items, but it definitely is easy to get a day spread out over just a comment. I don't see you guys enough.
I miss you too.
Together. So, anyway, it's fun.
Okay. With that, oh, it's Connie, oh, it's Bridget.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how it flowed into that, but anyway.
Daniel, I missed that.
Children are very important.
Nice try, Charlie.
It's up to the next generation to fix this and put it forward.
That's exactly.
Wait till wait for that.
Sounded good.
Good outbreak.
So this was on our last agenda that we tabled. So basically it's what's been discussed around the community and with council members and with staff, that there is a need for pallets in Anakla. It's weak. Their biggest thing is having a worker. So I don't know if y'all went through the document. Okay. So it says discussion, but there's some options laid out with the recommendation of option 4. You know, the challenge right now, and it's not just Anakla, it seems very isolated, this matter, but it's everywhere. I mean, just my granddaughter, I'm trying to get into daycare alone. She's on waiting lists all over. She's in a part-time daycare out of somebody's home right now, but it's not ideal. So, and you know, the earliest she gets shortlisted is January. So this is not unique to our community. So we did recommend option 4, which is expand for the future, apply to MCFD for major capital funding, move pallets to Upper Anakla and build staff housing. Yeah. New building would include after-school care as well as 0 to 5 child care. We would need approximately 3 full-time employees, equal 2 children under 3, 5 to 8 children 3 to 5 years, 14 children 6 to 12 years. There are a couple citizens enrolled in the ECE and they may be interested in coming home. Option 2 would also apply to this scenario. Clara is back October 1.
We're hoping October 1.
Okay. And I think there's 5 children.
Permanently, or?
Well, she was supposed to come back on September 1st, so it's been pushed to October 1st, so that's even tentative at this point.
Mm-hmm. So having Clara back is only partial.
Yeah, so there's 5 children in Anakla, correct?
5 under 5.
Right, that's what that's numbered in here. And so 3 of those are in care of Clara. And 2 of them aren't.
And then is there a need for other daycare needs, like for kids that have parents that are working until 4:30?
Yeah, and that's really our opportunity, and that's how we would be able to apply to MCFD, is to say that we're going to create a full-time after-school program for the kids who are going to school. It'll probably be before and after school, but yeah, that would be how we would be able to get the funding.
Yeah. Sorry.
So just from the economic development portfolio, this one's kind of, I would say, really crucial to me in regards to, I think we have the resources and capital and abilities to create businesses and create job opportunities. But 4 years ago when we started doing engagement sessions, I think it was me and Connie that went down to Victoria, and that was a really strong message. Because there was like 13 people there, and all of them were young. I think the only one that was a little bit older was our cousin Marlene, and but all of them were young in school or had families, and that was pretty crucial to them. Was the ability to know that they have care there, and I think, you know, For me, I think it's very important that within the next year that there's a solid daycare in place, and definitely willing to, from the active portfolio, be able to look at maybe what HGB could maybe partner with HFN or just support HFN in regards to meeting those needs, because for us to attract talent, that's just a necessity for us to be able to do it.
So, are you?
Recommending option 4.
Option 4. So moved. Is there a seconder? Second by Trevor. Any more discussion? I think this, Kathy, is this doable? Okay. I haven't heard that. I'm in favor. Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Motion carries.
Cool.
Okay, Elders Care Policy Decision, Charlie Clappis. Oh, Charlie, oh, lady.
Isn't there?
It's council procedures.
Executive.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Executive Council Procedures. Oh, it's still Charlie anyway.
Yeah. So I just put discussion on this one, which is, for me, starting dialogue. But the next two, the elders care policy, I think for me, these two are more just like accumulating and taking what we have and putting it more formal. A lot of the stuff we do is either informal or not written down anywhere. So that's kind of the intention of the two. But to start out with the EC procedures, for me, it's been interesting because the first term that we came in, we had to go through every little step. Everything had to decide on everything we're doing. But this one coming in, I come in and I'm like, I feel like I don't know a lot of the procedural stuff, you know, some of the decisions. Some of it's informal. I could give an example. I believe there's a policy that like you two don't drive together, or all councils in the same truck or something. You know, like there's those kind of things out there that some don't know about, but it's just kind of an operating thing we do. So I'm hoping for, you know, however it looks, like we have a lot of our spread out through our legislation of, you know, our procedures or code of conduct or whatever, but just an example is even travel, right? Like I haven't spoken about our travel, but I feel there should be limits. None of us travel after 11 or whatever. Like there's just something that we should, again, not necessarily at this table, but as a group, talk about what we think and, you know, have a debate on what's appropriate for our you know.
Yeah, good job.
On that, I think there should be a good discussion specifically about how we conduct ourselves as government and meetings and travel and stuff like that. So whether or not it's all housed in council procedures or not is, I think, an important discussion to have sooner than later. I would like to enshrine certain things like if you can't get home by 9 o'clock, stay overnight. Stuff like that. There were things that are 9 p.m. There are things that were instituted at the staff level that make sense. There are also other items in regards to distance traveled or hopping in with other individuals and that sort of thing that I think are important to discuss. I also think that we should make a distinction over the requirements of regular council meetings versus special council meetings. And just enshrine the fact that if it's a special meeting that's called before the 10-day or the 2-week window, then it's automatic that you can call into the meeting, stuff like that, right? Like if it's outside of a specific amount of time, or inside in this case, then that can catch some council members out of province or that sort of thing. So if we're calling a quick meeting, I think it should be enshrined in policy that you can just call in. So if we have a meeting 4 days from now, and it's called tomorrow, then it should be automatic that that meeting can be conducted electronically. Because I don't know where Colin will be or Trevor will be in 4 days, even though it might be important for us to have the meeting. I don't think we can really expect, outside of regular council meetings, everyone to always be in attendance, especially when the agenda item may be of importance to an individual who might not be able to make it otherwise. And that way we just kind of avoid the implication that we're trying to make sure Charlie can't attend this meeting because we're making a decision regarding something he cares about. Not that that's necessarily going to be the case, but we should avoid the perception by allowing that kind of thing.
So, and again, I think
Yeah,
on that,
no.
we're gonna probably do that anyway, right? Like if it's a quick meeting, it's a
Yeah,
call,
and
but
we
just
just- yeah.
having it written down somewhere to
Yeah.
help with.
So staff know what's expected too, right? Because then you can make it so that maybe not everybody needs to be here sitting in the
What
room.
about, I mean, those are hypothetical, is there actual situations where this has happened? Because I can't think of any.
There have been instances where meetings, and not in this term, but once or twice in the previous term, where meeting was moved to earlier at a different location. And that's no-go, you shouldn't do that, right? So if we have a meeting that's set for 2 weeks from now on Thursday at the House of Hutchison at 10 a.m., we shouldn't move it to 8 a.m. here, even if it makes sense, because citizens are supposed to be able to come to the meeting and that sort of thing. It's less of a problem in port.
I think
but when we
if it's happened, yeah, but I don't recall that ever happening.
No, not in this, oh, sorry, not in either of these terms, but it
Yeah.
had in the past.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we never had a rule about it.
Yeah.
No.
So there's just certain things that we can restrict to make sure that citizens have access to the meeting,
Mhm.
but also ensure that there are things that we can do to determine what constitutes attending a meeting, is calling in okay in special meetings, or under special circumstances, and so on and so forth. Like if Trevor has to be in Ottawa for 2 weeks and there's a council meeting in there, can we just have a policy that automatically allows him to call in?
Mhm.
Stuff like that, whereas so you don't have to okay it, you can it just happens, right? So council can make decisions in regards to those kind of procedures, and that makes sense. Or, Robert, if you have to step out because of a family emergency, and Derek has to step out at the same time, what are the procedures to make sure that we maintain quorum, et cetera, what constitutes quorum? We're not, is it just somebody in the room, or is it somebody who showed up and then had to leave and then can come back? These things will matter. So it's a wide topic that will need a wider discussion, or a longer discussion than I'm willing to do, because I have to pick up my kid in 20 minutes. So stuff like that, and like that, like if I have to leave,
Mhm.
and it's not gonna affect cool down, but those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Robert?
Hey, Trevor?
I came up with, but I was just wondering in regards to us attending, but also because we want to set certain dates, locations, so citizens can attend. I think part of the conversation, we should have a broader conversation, but one of the things we should add now is for us, I know Heather's not going to like this one, but we should be able to live stream and be able to have that interconnection with citizens online. And that would provide more opportunity for citizens, not just to travel to be in the meeting, but also to act. But I guess, because I guarantee you, you're gonna get way more younger people participating in our meetings if we do it that way. Because they're gonna, everything is built on what they can hold in their hand now. And so that's just something I offered in regards to, you know, part of the discussion is us making sure that we attend meetings. I think we should discuss, because just looking at October for me right now, it's crazy busy, and I think all of us are busy, and it's just, we should have discussions in regards to how our meetings will be set up, and being able to be in person, but also when are we allowed to participate by either Skype or by phone. But I think just adding the idea of if we're able to live feed, then citizens can participate even more.
Can I just comment on that? We're not quite at live feed yet, we have some.
No, I'm just offering it as input right now.
Yeah,
You know, being able to.
yeah, it's a great idea, I love it.
Way easier to.
Yeah, interesting and good points. A lot of factors and scenarios could easily pull us away from our governing table. But I want to go back to one of the comments I made, I think, when we first got into this new 4-year journey with our leadership here, was to designate all council meetings to happen in our governing office in Nanack on our homelands.
Yeah.
But I think there's an opportunity here to kind of set, you know, a good example for future governments of the way it is, you know, one of the things that we should always be here for is our council meetings for one. That's what our jobs are here, to lead our nation, make decisions on our nation, and we should commit to that. And we have assistants now, we have people who book our venues for us and our schedules, and we should be sophisticated in the way where we just calendar out the 4 years, so we never get into any of those situations or scenarios where we're attending other business outside of the governing table, right? Because we should all be here at every council meeting, and there should be nobody missing any of the meetings or calling in. And I think, you know, I just want to suggest a way around that is if we take the calendar and go 4 years ahead, you know, for this term, and know, you know, regular council meetings are on these days every month.
Or other regular.
And so
meetings,
we
yeah.
don't have that conflict where we're not, you know, here to like our citizens depend on us to be here, and as a team, and lead us as a team, and no one should be singled out in a way where one's in Ottawa or one's in Victoria or Vancouver. And so I just wanted to mention that again, that there's, I think, you know, we have a good opportunity here to work with our support staff to calendar out, and that's good for our citizens too. They know, you know, it's not just wondering when the council meeting next month is going to be. They know every month, right from January to December, the government sits on these days, and then our support staff work and ensure that nothing is going to be, you know, we're not going to be booked elsewhere, because that's our job, is to be here for our nation and our citizens. So I wanted to make that point again.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, so anyway, we've had that enough discussion on that now, so we'll leave that topic and go on to 9. Okay, John, make sure I'm on the right one here. 9H, Elders Care Policy. Charlie.
So yeah, this one was the one that was added late for the last council meeting that we weren't able to get to. Basically, the intention here is, to me, to show that's a priority. It's not necessarily trying to set financial implications or new policy that's going to affect things immediately, but basically there's a lot of different kind of rules and different policies out there, or informal policies about elders, even from as simple as firewood. It's not written anywhere really, or there's some things out there that is written somewhere but not everyone knows about it. So I'm hoping for us to pass this in principle, that where we start to build one. Of course, this will be a kind of if we do, it's a kind of a custom thing, but just to be cleaner, and to me it kind of lines up to the possibility, like, of course we always talk about at home and away from home, but with the addition of the elders facility in Naklo last council meeting as a potential, this just lines up with that idea. So, and even the 60-year-old, like, I don't think that's written anymore.
That's something.
Like I haven't been shown
If you want
the
to
policy where
amend
that
the 2009.
who it is an elder when they're 60. It's just either in an old motion from
It's in the HR policy,
Okay.
just a prejudice.
Robert?
Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just suggest that perhaps we I know the recommendation is just a recommendation, but when we do a motion, perhaps we just direct research into an elders care policy, like we want a feasibility study by some date, and then the government infrastructure list item should be a separate motion, just to keep it clean. I didn't see a motion. Yeah. So I think that's a good idea. With that in mind, is there process around adding to the infrastructure list?
Oh, I see.
And do you need committee support or some sort of support to move that forward, or do you just want to add that
So
to the list?
thanks for that. This was drafted, and the intention was going to last meeting. So we
Yeah.
actually did that motion already, the reference to the facility.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could have been taken off because that's been done, but definitely it would go to the appropriate committees for sure.
Okay.
It's just more to show, to me, it's proven to citizens that this is a priority and that we need to start looking at the issues.
So 9H and I is
So
in this
let's just
motion.
ask for 2 feasibility studies then by certain dates. Yeah.
Robert?
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here.
I don't want us to get bogged down in feasibility studies. We do so many feasibility studies, and basically where they are is on the shelf. That's where they are. I think a feasibility study is a little bit more when we're more ready. I think there's some preliminary work here that we can do. You're talking about the unwritten but spoken policies that maybe just need to be, and if they are there, just to be put all in one place. And so some direction on, I know we're going over them tomorrow in our Citizen Development Committee. We're going over Shannon's department, and then the next meeting we're going through Coral's department. And so both of those all fall into, I believe, what you're talking about.
That's it. We're just calling it different things.
So let me, so there's an option here. Is there a motion with this?
No, there
No,
isn't.
there is no
The
motion?
elders care?
So,
Well, there was one on the infrastructure list. I didn't see one.
So,
What is it called?
for the infrastructure
elders
list,
care policy.
there is a
That's the
motion
breaking
for
point.
this one, for the elders care policy, but executive council passed a motion in August within the infrastructure list when Charlie was adding things last time, which included to have the elders care facility added to the infrastructure list.
So that's
Yeah, so
been
the-
done.
So that's already been
Facility's done.
completed, yeah.
The policy, though.
It's just
needs
that
a
we need a
motion.
decision to do the elder care policy, correct?
Yes.
I was asking Connie, would something like this fall within the social service 32 recommendations?
Actually, it is in there, yeah.
Is it, from what I remember, the project,
There's a broad,
it's a wraparound.
very
effect, right?
broad recommendation that would fall in that recommendation.
Maybe just council's approving that gets bumped up the list on the
Yeah, this
recommendations?
is, yeah, I mean, this is the work that we're starting tomorrow at our committee
Mhm.
meeting. And so I just didn't, so it just gives direction to go there and then.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that
and then
takes it,
it's getting going and we'll come back.
yeah. Okay, so the decision is then that there's a recommendation that this will be kicked to which committee?
Citizen development.
Citizen Development. Okay. So does that conclude the H and I then? Because
No,
I is taken care of from what I
The-
No, it's a separate one.
that's a separate
That's
item.
separate one?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one will be quick. So yeah, as mentioned in the last meeting, like, just for our possible, I'll rephrase that, possible government infrastructure list that we hold. Officially, we can't really talk about anything, do any planning, or do any work unless it's on the list. So we've done that, and I'm looking at doing it again. So I think we've all been affected, I believe, from this last few weeks of our community being ripped apart. Some of us have seen it right before our eyes. Our children have flocked away from our community for various reasons, and I still think, so basically, I'm proposing we put an independent school on our possible infrastructure list. Or an education facility or something that is showing that a building or whatever is on our radar. We could start over time looking at costs, but I think we all can agree the current situation is not ideal for Kuwait people. Getting feedback of already this month of Kuwait children being behind at the ADSS. This current situation is, I don't believe, we're not leading for success the way we're going. So either one day we have a small, so this is just, yeah, so that's just the idea, is to put a school on our possible list. And one day we might have some facts, obviously there's operational costs and there's program effects, but to me, similar to it, this is where a feasibility study would eventually come to actually put all the info on paper, what's realistic. And again, to me, I'm just inspired by, actually researching independent schools. You can start a school, it's a nonprofit, you only need 11 children, I believe, or 10 children to act. And I bet you there's 2 pages of success stories in the province of First Nation schools or independent schools being a benefit for their communities. And I think we're at a time where we need to start seriously talking about it.
Robert?
Yeah, Trevor.
So we, from our EDC, just passed we gave direction to the EDO to look into privatization and nonprofits would be included in that. So that's kind of the idea, I think, from school district. I think I would say you're kind of handcuffed to what you're able to do, whereas if you go through privatization, you're driving the bus.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But yeah, so just we're just looking at the research and development right now.
So do you want, how do you want you want a motion now or just?
Yeah.
You want to move that the independent school be considered in the infrastructure list? Is that?
Yeah, so be resolved that executive council hereby approves the addition of the independent school.
Oh, you got a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. You move it?
I'll move it, yeah.
Seconded by Keishan. Discussion?
Question?
Question?
When you add to the infrastructure list, is the infrastructure list, does it have any prescription to how many items can be on there, or is it just, you can just have a list of priorities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So the list of priorities and they work together, what will be funded in that whatever year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's no kind of like, if we put this on, we're not bumping another one?
No, no.
No, there's
Just adding.
two parts to it. There's the potential list, which allows us to look into it and do research, and then there's the list that we're doing this year, or
Okay.
within the 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I agree. So I just don't want us to get confused with, okay, we want to do this. It's going on the potential list or possible list. And now we want our staff to focus on this, that we have to follow what our priorities are that we've agreed to and not get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We need to complete things. No, I know I've said this.
Charlie, I see the previous one you mentioned, 2019. Do you want this one to be the 2019 or 2020 infrastructure list?
Well, no, it just,
19.
it literally is just an active list.
Yeah, it rolls over.
Yeah, no, but we're required to make approval of an annual infrastructure list.
1920.
Yeah.
That's only linked to the budget.
Yeah.
Through the
So
budget.
how the list is set up right now is the ones that are budgeted for in this year are on the active side, and the ones that are potentials and want to do in the future are on the potential side.
So you could
And we
put
look
down
at it every year.
2019 potential and then we start looking for money.
Mhm. And then we make a decision during the budget decisions for next year whether or not we put it active, but
Unless
yeah.
you end up getting the money. of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
To be built by 2033.
so it should be either saying the current or the 2019 and this.
2019 list.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing no more discussion, motion carried. John, and housing, and then, John, did you want to say something before we go?
Yeah, it'll be.
Oh, you got an item, you gotta leave?
I gotta leave at probably 20 after half past.
So are you okay with that, Charlie, John, getting his issue dealt with?
It'll be quick.
You okay?
Yeah.
I don't, legally I can't do it without.
For 20 minutes.
Well, council can do it, but it's free.
Yeah.
So Monolith has a funding application in that is basically accessing money for capacity through the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency. So they've made changes to SIA that could affect our ability to provide meaningful consultation and feedback in regards to any environmental assessment processes that are going on in our territory or that may affect us. So the idea is that $300,000 has been offered to Monolith for capacity funding through a program that they call Indigenous Capacity Support Program, just to prepare the way for Monolith nations and other nations that are being offered this money to be able to catch up with the changes and be able to provide feedback in the form and function and at the level that they require now. And there are changes that do significantly change some of the timelines or the form of how we respond to environmental assessment projects. So it makes sense for us to apply for this program, and we just need authorization from the nation for me to apply my signature to it as a part of the application. Then we'll receive our share of $300,000 at some point in the near future.
Okay, you want to move that?
I shall.
Okay, seconded by Connie. Discussion?
Yeah.
Waiting for money, isn't it? Done. Quick.
Yeah.
I have some
We're
questions.
true to your word. Okay, Charlo.
Just ran to the bachelor.
Is yours long, Robert? Your Check News one?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I forgot about that one, but there was a request, right? For,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that from Brandon and
From
Amanda?
Yes.
Amanda and Brandon, yeah.
Their funky briefing notes.
What number is it?
9I?
It doesn't have one, it's just called Check News. Do you want me just to review it, Robert?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I have it up. So, Robert
L, 9L.
Amanda and Brandon were contacted by Check News by one of their producers to have a broadcast premiere for our documentary. And the way that they would go about doing it is that they would do a premiere in Port Alberni with a viewing party, a live Q&A, and additional news coverage by Check News for the premiere itself. And so the idea here would be that they have to license the actual documentary from us. So they've offered a in-kind or contra agreement with Check, which means that in exchange for something, Check will be able to broadcast our items. So what they're offering is the coverage and I think $2,000 per showing. And so if we can maximize the coverage that Check will give us, then that would be great. It's, from what I understand, it's not exclusive, so we can still shop the film out to other broadcasters as well. So ABTN, CBC, if they translate it into French, whatever the French one is called, Radio Canada, and so on and so forth. So there are a couple things that we need to do, one of which is a CRTC registration. At some point, closed captioning has to be done, but Check is offering to do that, and that's the contra. So we're in a good space here for that, and I think that's a good next step. Now that we've gone through and won a bunch of festival awards, getting into the broadcast process and potentially using this as a step up into CBC or APTN would be good too. And that could provide us some of...
Discussion?
Just that there might be, I'm not sure, because I haven't talked with Amanda and Brandon fully, but they might have a cost that they attach to this to help facilitate all that. It's just flag it, we'll figure it out, but.
Yeah. Okay. Hearing no discussion, motion carried. Okay, where are we? Oh, so you said it wasn't on here. Housing. Charlie.
Charlie's
I think Charlie, you're just giving an a decision on two of them. Do we need decision? I thought it's already approved
Yeah. That's it.
in the budgeting process. Isn't
The
it?
direction for this one, it can just
For
be
which
direction to go to CBC
Oh, okay.
Right.
for the residential lot plan. So that could just be sent over.
So yeah, they'll be quick. I just first want to be Canadian and apologize for all agenda items. I don't intend to take up half the meeting, but a few of them are just musts. And the housing one, I just want to keep plugging along. So just a quick reference to this one, just so everyone's aware. Half of this is just more information, like so we're kind of understanding. So in order for us to lease out any lots in Upper Napa subdivision next year, we need to go through this fiscal process laid out in the residential leasing regulation. So basically, yeah, the committee, it says the Citizen Development Committee needs to recommend a residential lot plan by September 30th. Council has to approve a residential lot plan by November 30th. So there's a process, but basically, and the benefits of this is we'll see some interest out there, possibly or not, in citizens leasing those lots that we've recently constructed up the hill. And each year it will go through the cycle. But,
Yeah, John.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So in regards to the lot plan, it looks straightforward. What I'm wondering though is there zoning and or usage decisions that we can make that will back up a kind of a vision for the community? My concern is that there would be people who build houses and then just rent them out in short-term vacation rentals rather than adding to the housing supply. They'll just make money. So that's something we can address in the future when these houses get built, if they're not purpose-built for social housing or something. But we can also do things with either business licensing, which we don't have, or zoning. So I don't want to do anything. I just want to put that on the table that we should have a decision about that kind of thing. We haven't looked at zoning since I think 2013 or 14. So.
So again, thanks. This has been procedural. Like, just this gives direction to go to the committee, and Connie's aware of it for the commission. So, so the next one's linked basically. In my mind, for our best results, we should review all, like, what the existing residential is, what's out there, and either, there's two things. We need to either look at the old ones and consider some changes, but for sure we need to amend any new ones, like what's worked with the old ones, how does it impact from being a lower NACLA to upper NACLA, all that to me needs to be beforehand. And so this next one is just discussion, like the residential leases now, some of you have probably heard, we've had multiple lawyers involved with leases since the treaty, or since we signed these in 2013. The newest issue is that it's like a catch-22. They can't assign a lease. A citizen can't assign a lease unless there's home insurance on the receiving end, on the new basically leaseholder. But the insurance companies are saying they won't provide house insurance.
Yeah.
Because of the way the lease is currently structured. So there's some issues there, and some have happened already, but that is a red flag, and we'll go through the process, but that sounds like it needs to be amended for anyone to even attain house insurance.
The nation guarantees it or something?
They're mentioned as a second insurer or something.
Yeah, they'll insure it if the nation guarantees that.
So, yeah, that'll come up probably in a separate later, but I just wanted to talk about that. That should get started, I think, and we need to look at our current leases. And it'll probably come up a different way also through the lands department or whatever.
So what do we do?
I just wanted to have a quick discussion, and that was kind of linked to that last item that we should be prepping our leases for next year.
So does this go to Kathy?
But you need the 220,020 residential lot plan, that you've already got a decision, or you're looking for?
That one's going to CDC. It's the
Community
residential
Development Committee,
leases.
and then the ICS housing funding application says decision.
Yeah, so that one is just a grant application to Indigenous Services Canada.
So you want to move that we,
Yeah.
okay.
We're not doing anything with this one?
No, it was just more
Okay.
discussion.
So a motion to approve the grant application to whoever, right? Okay, you're moving that?
Second.
Seconded by John, discussion. Something you can let Coralie know.
Yeah, yeah, just so, there's obviously with any grants with them, there's a preamble that you have to put in the motion, just saying that we're, basically just, sorry, quickly, I know we were in a rush, but basically we can apply up to $50,000 for grant money. We basically just have to put $10,000 of our own in, which we're, basically this is to draft a housing policies and a housing plan. Those are eligible costs. To me, we're already there, we're doing that stuff, we're gonna be probably spending the money anyway, so we might as well get another 40 grand to go toward this initiative. And this was referenced in the interim housing panel report as a source of funding appropriate for our work.
Okay, so that means, hearing no more discussion, J3 is approved now?
I'll move.
It is, you moved,
Yeah.
seconder.
I second it.
Joan said
No more discussion.
Okay.
so- Okay. The next one is, did we get a PST sharing approval decision?
Paul.
Paul? Oh, Paul.
We have the final agreement ready to go. So it will be effective May 1st. And the amount to be paid to Huayet in the first year is $29,936 based on a formula. The first year is actually just 11 months because the tax transition happened the first day of the first month after the 8th anniversary. So it was May 1st instead of April. Next year it'll be the full 12 months. So it's a little bit prorated this year. So yeah, we just need the authority to enter into the agreement. Because this is an agreement with the province of British Columbia, it'll go through the new process of going on the Government Agreement Act. The Government Agreements Authorizations Act. So the motion will read a little differently. It won't be approving the agreement, it'll be adding it to the schedule on the Government Agreements Authorizations Act.
John, you said, do we need a motion here?
There's a motion.
I've got like a draft one right now.
Sure.
Therefore be it resolved, add the provincial sales tax revenue sharing agreement to Schedule A of the Government Agreements Authorizations Act. Column 1 shall read May 1st, 2019. Column 2 shall read Huayet First Nations Provincial Sales Tax Revenue Sharing Agreement. And column 3 shall read Chief Counselor. That's just the effective date, name of the agreement, and who's the signing authority.
Okay, so moved.
So moved by Connie, seconded by John. Discussion on the 29 grand, hearing none, motion carried.
Part of that could be strong.
Okay, staff report, are we in order your staff reports, Kathy?
No, sorry, Robert,
Oh.
the gaming revenues sharing agreement.
Oh,
Because that was
And-
added. That was added.
And Paul was.
okay, Paul.
So this one, we don't have the final number, but we know the formula. It'll be just under 400,000. So this is money from provincial gaming, but the way it's flowing through BC First Nations Gaming Revenue Sharing Limited Partnership has been formed. So our partnership agreement is actually with them, and that limited partnership signs with the province, so we don't have to do the same government acts thing here, but we do need a resolution, and that they've provided the language for this one. So this one's a little bit longer. Whereas the province of BC, the BC First Nations Gaming Revenue Sharing Limited Partnership, the British Columbia Assembly of First Nations, the First Nations Summit, and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs have entered into the interim BC First Nations Gaming Revenue Sharing and Financial Agreement dated for reference August 2nd, 2019, called the Interim Revenue Sharing Agreement, which provides for transfer of a portion of the net provincial gaming revenues to British Columbia First Nations. And whereas the partnership was formed to receive, manage, distribute, and report on gaming revenue sharing funds provided through the Interim Revenue Sharing Agreement and any successor agreement. And whereas Huayet First Nations is an eligible First Nation that is entitled to receive a share of gaming revenue sharing funds. And whereas an eligible First Nation must become a limited partner in the partnership and a shareholder in BCFN GRS GP INC, the general partner, in order to receive distributions under the BC First Nations Gaming Revenue Sharing Limited Partnership Agreement. Therefore, be it resolved that the First Nation is authorized to execute and deliver a joinder agreement and to subscribe for a limited interest in the partnership and share in the general partner. Therefore, be it further resolved that the Chief Counselor is hereby authorized to execute all documentation and to effect other actions as may be required to effect these resolutions and to satisfy such other requirements as may be required for the First Nation to receive its share of provincial gaming revenue from the partnership.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Hooray.
Yay, game
Hooray.
day.
$335,000.
Thank you for your advice.
Okay.
Could we make those agenda items?
Just over
The next, item,
$400,000, I just brought in the last 3 minutes.
Review, okay, in motion to go in, oh no, sorry, executive director report. Discussion. Is there any discussion?
There's just a couple of things that I'd like to point out. So one of them is that the UBCM and the NTC AGM are happening concurrently this year. And we don't have from everybody a proxy letter. And I know that we have some specifically scheduled meetings for some of council. And so I think we just need to get really clear on what parts of the NTC meeting council can attend or in what parts they won't, and then if we want to assign proxies. So we're going to be getting that all organized this week. Then the other thing that I wanted to do is, when I went to the NTC Board of Directors, Robert really liked that they reported on the motions from the previous month. And so I've done a table that basically goes through each thing. So the first one was, of course, the adoption of agenda. And then beside the action status, it says NAR, there's no action required. So there's going to be a fair number of those on every agenda, but then there's the other motions. So the approval of the MOU for Indigenous Housing and Homeland Relationships, that was approved when I was writing this. We were trying to track down the actual MOU to be signed, and I'm not sure, have we done that yet?
Yes, I asked.
Yeah,
Charlie, which
got it.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, so that one's completed as well now. So it just goes through the infrastructure list was updated, that's completed. For the People's Assembly, we hired a coordinator. That will be in progress until the People's Assembly is completed.
Who's the coordinator?
Nicole Malcolmson.
Okay.
She did it last time, so it was an easy one. The Independent Housing Authority, we haven't had time to really dive into the study, and I think it's going to take more than a month to do that, so ask for more time for that one.
Thick report.
The Housing Action Plan went to Finance Committee. They made a recommendation to pay out the CMHC loan. That had a special executive council meeting on August 29th, and that was completed. And the check has been mailed and received. The social housing regulation, we have posted for a contract housing coordinator. We have limited internal capacity for managing our housing stock. So prior to Charlie getting elected, he was that role. But now we need to find a new person. So it's been posted and I have one application so far. The vehicle policy was sent to all staff and executive council. That was done. The Monmouth TMX agreement, the letter was signed and delivered. That's complete. And the CMHC loan, again, complete. So of all of the motions from last month, everything is complete with the exception of the People's Assembly and the Independent Housing Authority, which are both in progress, and Executive Council will receive a report on those next month.
We waited a long time for this.
Any questions?
Any questions? Is there any questions or comments to the Executive Director's report? Seeing none, we'll move on to, where am I here, trying to get organized here. Move on to a motion to go in camera. So moved, seconded by Kishan. In camera means